Hello, this is Mercury Glider, and this is the Lunar Landing Research Vehicle. Now this vehicle, I find this really interesting. This was a vehicle that I believe helped during NASA's Apollo program to land humans on the moon. I believe it was used as a training vehicle, though I will have to fact check that. I haven't really been in the loop of this kind of stuff for a while, but I used to be really big into space. And I always found this vehicle really interesting. Because, well, look at it. This thing was designed to sort of feel like flying the lunar landers, which I find extremely interesting. And yeah, I believe it was a few months ago, one came out for X-Plane 12. I'm just now getting around to it. So I'm very curious about how this vehicle is to fly, and let's get right into it here. As you can see here, I believe these are fuel tanks surrounding a vertically mounted jet engine. It actually says the fuel right there, hydrogen peroxide, which I'm assuming they mix with these fuel tanks right here to produce the fuel. Though again, not 100% sure. Vehicle is a little jumpy, but I think that's just because of how experimental it is, X-Plane-wise. You can see here, this NASA 952 and has various different patches from the Apollo missions, from, I believe, 13 to 17. Is there, jumpy. Anyways, this was my first time seeing this, by the way. We have a very interesting cockpit. In fact, I hope... Okay, good. There is a way to hide the pilot body. Just from a first start, I'm assuming these are the battery switches. No, these are battery switches. These must be to control the flight system. We have an engine start here, we have an ignition. I believe one of these various switches lets us enable what's called a lunar landing simulation mode, I believe, which should sort of simulate what it'd be like to land on the moon. Anyways, I have the checklist up right here. It's my first attempt starting this thing up, so see what happens here. Battery on, battery B on. So I just want to point this incredible view out. It shows the whole assembly there. This thing's gonna be very scary once we get it rolling. Probably already skipping most of the startup process, but right now I am still looking for... Oh, it's interesting. Still looking for a switch. This is interesting. So some of these instruments here are actually instruments used on the lunar landing module for the moon missions. So it's nice that they incorporated some of these avionics here that actually simulate that. We test our engine fire warning system. That's working alright. And we test our annunciators, which is what that was, so... And we'll be fine. Perfectly fine. Seems like we could test it both at once, so... Set our throttle to idle. Oh, that's our throttle. It's actually interesting. T-stick is set to down. I believe that's this thing here. Engine starter. Start. There's our RPM. Tables. RPM. So once it stabilizes, turn off the ignition. I did that wrong. Because again, this is my first time starting this thing. Okay, I should have practiced this at least once before I show you how to start this thing, because I feel like an idiot right now. Percent ignition off. Fuels are connecting. And we are now idling. So we started our jet engine. So right here, if I turn the sound up, we should be able to hear it much better. That's on. Turn on both engine generators. Make sure the generator annunciators are off. That's correct. We turn on both inverters. Make sure the inverters are off. And then we just check the voltages one last time. Zero AC. Alright. So now what we're going to do is we are ready to go flying. So keep in mind, I'm going to bring the pilot block back here. I have not flown this thing yet. This is going to be my first impressions here of me actually operating this vehicle. Jet engine up. Alright, we've lost our ground contact light. That ground contact light is another thing that is on the Apollo lunar landers. Alright, so right now I'm airborne with it with 0 flight assist, I believe. As you can see here, we can hold things like yaw rate, pitch attitude, and roll attitude. So this thing is I'm going to try to maintain a hover here, since this thing wasn't really designed to go forward. As you can see here, we have these little rocket jets controlling our attitude. I was curious what those were. So now that we're airborne, we have various different things here. So activate this pilot body again. You can see we have backup controls of pitch and roll in case those go out. And I believe the hydrogen peroxide is actually controlling these rocket valves. See here, we're kind of drifting, a little bit windy, I think. You can see that up there, which are our wind speeds. Now we have this, which I says what the astronauts would use. So if I kind of use this system here, we should be able to get into a pretty nice hover. And line up the velocities, probably. So far, this thing feels pretty simple to fly. So what we're going to do is we're going to start the lunar lander simulation. So what we have to do is we have to get this thing into a hover, and then we push that control thing, the stick. Also kind of bent. Hovering this thing feels very interesting, because as I said, because of those rockets controlling it, you don't get that much aerodynamic feedback that you usually would. Nice. I start the lunar lander simulation now. So what's happening right now is now we are, at least the computer is trying to simulate a lunar landing. So let's attempt to land. As you can see here, I'm controlling this landing stick now, which is pretty, looks kind of similar to the actual lunar landing. So if I remember correctly, on the actual lunar landers, I believe they used a different system to control the throttle. I believe it was a little switch that you can flick with your finger. Anyways, so you can see we're going to start lowering our vertical speed here. If needed, the ejection seat is modeled, but hopefully that won't be required. Fun fact, you can thank this ejection seat system for saving Neil Armstrong, first human to walk on the moon, because this thing actually almost killed him during a training flight. Anyways, we are shifting dramatically. Oh, that's interesting. So just take a look here. The jet engine is actually gimbaled to the horizon. And we're now using those little thrusters there instead. As we're climbing again, it's pretty shocking since I have this thing on here, minimal throttle, but I may have gotten that hover throttle wrong. A little bit forward, but that's okay. We just ran out of fuel. Whoa! Okay. Well. It appears we messed it up. So what we're going to do is we're going to attempt this again. Except we're going to give it just a little bit more fuel. Back in. So let's burn through this startup process. Battery A on, battery B on, avionics on, DC voltage check, annunciators test, fuel valve open, igniter on, engine starter on. Wait for that engine to rev up above 20%, ignition off, engine running up. Engine stabilize, generators on, inverters on. Engine peroxide valves, which controls our little jets, on. And you can see we have a little thing here. Very, very interesting. Alright. Let's attempt to do what we did last time. I'm going to put this thing into a hover, engage the lunar simulation mode, and we're going to practice another landing. If I put more throttle in this time. Oh, that would be. Okay. And the simulation start. If we can, you can see that engine gimbaling right there. I find that very interesting. Okay. Lowering our rocket engines. I'm getting a better feeling of how to fly this thing, since now I know we pretty much put those lowest throttle. Contact. Alright. So, flying this vehicle is very interesting. I'm going to turn off the lunar landing simulation. I must admit, this thing is tricky. As you saw there, even at the end I was losing it and I don't know how to correct it. And it's sort of due to the way that it functions. So what it appears how it works is once you hover it, it seems like it lowers its power enough to sort of simulate lunar gravity, where you're sort of, slowly descending. And then you use the little rocket motors to actually land. Now, the trouble I was having is because you use these two little rocket motors to actually orient the vehicle, I was finding it a little bit hard to zero out the velocities because these were so tiny in comparison. Now, if I remember correctly, on the actual Apollo lunar lander, these little rocket jets here, I believe those, you could use those to actually kind of zero out your velocity a little bit. At least, if I remember correctly, I'm no expert on that. But, yeah. We're going to be taking a cool look at the replay. And then, yeah. This has been the Lunar Landing Research Vehicle. Again, it's a very unique vehicle. I must admit. It's definitely one of those unique vehicles that I'm going to definitely try to come back to every now and then, try to fly. And, yeah. If y'all enjoyed the video, it's been your Mercury Glider, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye. Okay, just because I'm curious, we're gonna end this with one last thing. Does it... Oh. That's a big yes.